He was a man who didn't blink until a little girl in a pale pink dress walked into his glass castle, looked him in the eye and said, "You're my daddy." Matthew Reed, a stoic CEO, was just preparing for a report meeting that morning. But that tiny voice, that shaky envelope, shouted the truth that turned his life upside down. Everything had changed. Because that envelope had been reopened with a piece of writing he thought he had buried years ago. A woman's smile and a pair of green eyes that now looked him in the eye. Before we get to the story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like the video to support us. Now I leave the floor to our storyteller, Christopher Goodbye.
The office was a storm of sharp words and clipped tones, its glass walls barely containing the tension. Matthew Reed stood at his desk in the headquarters of Reed Enterprises, his jaw set as he faced his driver, Andrew Carter. At 39, Matthew was a millionaire, whose logistics empire ran on precision, his tailored navy suit and steady gaze a testament to his control. Andrew, a wiry man in his early 30s, stood rigid, his chauffeur's cap in hand, his eyes burning with quiet defiance. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the city beyond, the weight of Matthew's decision hanging heavy. "You were late again, Andrew," Matthew said, his voice cold but measured. "Third time this month. I cannot afford mistakes. You are done." Andrew's knuckles whitened, his voice low. "I explained, sir," he said. "My daughter was I had to take her to the clinic. I have always been reliable." "Excuses do not move shipments," Matthew cut in, his tone final. "Clear out your things. We'll get 2 weeks severance." He turned to his computer, dismissing Andrew with a flick of his wrist, his focus already shifting to the next crisis, a delayed contract worth millions. Andrew lingered, his breath uneven, then turned and left, the door closing with a soft click. Matthew leaned back, a flicker of unease stirring in his chest, but he pushed it aside. Reliability was non-negotiable, and Andrew had faltered. The decision was sound, a necessity of his world, where emotion bowed to efficiency. Hours later, Matthew stepped into the lobby, the marble floors gleaming under soft lights. His new driver was late, a frustration that sharpened his mood as he waited for his car. The revolving doors spun and a small figure slipped through, a girl no older than 6, her blonde hair tangled, her pink dress faded and slightly too small. She clutched a crumpled envelope, her green eyes wide with determination as she marched toward him, ignoring the receptionist's startled glance. "Are you Mr. Reed?" she asked, her voice clear despite her small frame. Matthew frowned, glancing around, but no one followed her. "Yes," he said, his tone cautious. "Who are you?" The girl stepped closer, her gaze unwavering. "I am Emily," she said, her words steady. "Andrew's daughter. And you are my dad." The words hit like a shockwave, freezing Matthew in place. The lobby's hum faded, his pulse loud in his ears. Emily's green eyes held his, unflinching, the envelope trembling in her small hands. He opened his mouth, but no words came, his mind scrambling to process her claim. Dad. He had no children, no ties beyond his empire. The idea was absurd, yet her certainty, her presence, was a challenge he could not dismiss. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice low, kneeling to her level. "Where is your father?" "Andrew is my daddy," Emily said, her voice softening. "But Mommy said you are my real dad. She wrote it here." She thrust the envelope at him, its edges worn, her small fingers insistent. Matthew took it, his hands unsteady, and opened it to find a letter, the handwriting sharp but faded. His eyes scanned the first line. "Matthew, if you are reading this, Emily needs you. She's yours." The signature, Jennifer, stirred a memory, a name from a brief, reckless summer 9 years ago, a woman he had known for weeks before they parted without promises. His chest tightened, the possibility too raw to grasp. "Where is Andrew?" Matthew asked, his voice hoarse, glancing at the receptionist, who was already on the phone, likely calling security. "He is at home," Emily said, her eyes glistening. "He is sad because you fired him. I came to find you. Mommy said you would help." Matthew's mind raced, Jennifer's letter a weight in his hands. He had no proof, no reason to believe this child, yet her eyes, green like his own, held a truth he could not ignore. Andrew, the man he had just fired, had been raising Emily, believing her to be his own. Betrayal, the questions loomed large, but Emily's small figure, her courage in facing him, demanded he act. "Come with me," he said, his voice gentle, rising to his feet. He led her to a quiet corner of the lobby, away from curious eyes, and called his assistant, Sarah. "Find Andrew Carter," he said, his tone urgent. "Get him here now." As Sarah made calls, Matthew looked at Emily, her small hand clutching the hem of her dress, and felt a shift, a crack in the life he had built. Her words had stopped him cold, and whatever truth lay in that letter, he could not walk away. The lobby of Reed Enterprises was a cavern of glass and marble, its polished surfaces reflecting the city's restless glow. Matthew Reed stood in a quiet corner, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the small girl before him. Emily, 6 years old, clutched the hem of her faded pink dress, her green eyes, unsettlingly like his own, fixed on him with a mix of hope and defiance. Her words, "You are my dad," echoed in his mind, each syllable a jolt to the ordered world he had built. The crumpled envelope in his hand, bearing Jennifer's letter, felt heavier than it should, its faded ink a whisper from a past he had long buried. Andrew Carter, the driver he had fired hours ago, was on his way, summoned by Matthew's assistant Sarah. The air was thick with questions, and Matthew's pulse raced as he tried to anchor himself. "Emily," he said, his voice softer than his usual boardroom tone, kneeling to her level. "How did you get here? Does Andrew know you are here?" Emily's small hands twisted the fabric of her dress, her voice steady despite her size. "I took the bus," she said. "Daddy, Andrew, was crying after you fired him. I found Mommy's letter in his drawer. She said to give it to you if we needed help." Matthew's chest tightened, the image of Andrew weeping clashing with the man's quiet competence behind the wheel. Jennifer's letter, its opening line, "Emily is yours," stirred a memory of a summer 9 years ago, a fleeting romance with a woman whose laughter had briefly softened his guarded heart. They had parted without promises, and Matthew had moved on, his life consumed by Reed Enterprises. The idea that Emily could be his daughter was a fracture in that reality, her presence a challenge he could not dismiss. "Stay here," he said, rising, his tone gentle but firm. He glanced at Sarah, who hovered nearby, her phone in hand. "Keep an eye on her," he said, "and let me know the second Andrew arrives." Sarah nodded, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity, guiding Emily to a plush chair. Matthew stepped away, the letter in his hand, and read it again, his eyes scanning Jennifer's words. "Matthew, if you are reading this, I am gone. Emily is your daughter, born after we parted. Andrew has raised her as his own, but she deserves to know you. Please be the father she needs." The signature was dated 2 years ago, the paper worn from handling. Jennifer was gone, dead perhaps, and Andrew had carried this secret, raising Emily alone. Guilt gnawed at Matthew, his decision to fire Andrew now a jagged edge in his conscience. The revolving doors spun, and Andrew burst through, his chauffeur's jacket gone, his face pale with panic. His eyes found Emily, and he rushed to her, dropping to his knees. "Emily? Thank God," he said, his voice breaking, pulling her into a fierce embrace. "You cannot run off like that. I was so scared." "I had to, Daddy," Emily said, her small arms around his neck. "I gave Mr. Reed the letter." Andrew's gaze snapped to Matthew, his expression shifting from relief to fury. "What is this?" he demanded, standing, his voice low but sharp. "She shows up here alone with some letter? What are you doing with my daughter?" Matthew raised a hand, his tone calm but strained. "She came to me, Andrew," he said, holding up the envelope. "This is from Jennifer. She says Emily is my daughter." Andrew's face drained of color, his fists clenching. "That is a lie," he said, his voice shaking. "Emily is mine. Jennifer and I were together. I have been her father since she was born." Emily's small voice cut through, her eyes wide. "But Mommy said Mr. Reed is my dad," she said, clutching Andrew's hand. "She said it in the letter." Andrew knelt again, his voice softening but urgent. "Sweetheart, you are my daughter," he said. "No letter changes that." He glared at Matthew, his eyes burning. "You fired me and now you are trying to take her? Is this some game?" Matthew's jaw tightened, the accusation stinging. "I am not trying to take anyone," he said. "I did not know about Emily until today. We need to figure this out for her sake." Sarah stepped forward, her voice cautious. "I called a family counselor," she said. "She can't Meet us in an hour, help sort this out. And I have a car waiting to take you all somewhere. Private. Matthew nodded, his mind racing. Good, he said. Andrew, come with us. Emily, you too. We are not solving this in a lobby. Andrew hesitated, his gaze flickering to Emily, then nodded, his shoulders tense. They drove to a quiet office nearby, the counselor, a woman named Linda, waiting with a calm demeanor. Emily sat between Andrew and Matthew, her small hands folded, her presence a fragile bridge between two men bound by her claim. Linda listened as Matthew explained. The letter, Andrew's role, and Emily's words, her notes steady on a pad. Emily, Linda said, her voice gentle, can you tell me what you know about the letter? Emily nodded, her voice clear. Mommy wrote it before she got sick, she said. She said Mr. Reed was my dad, but Andrew is my daddy too. She said if we needed help, I should find him. Andrew's eyes glistened, his voice low. Jennifer never told me, he said. We were together. When Emily was born, I thought she was mine. When Jennifer died, I kept going for Emily. Matthew's throat tightened, Andrew's pain a mirror to his own confusion. I did not know. Jennifer was pregnant, he said. We were together briefly years ago. Family is mine, I want to do right by her. Linda nodded, her tone measured. We need clarity, she said. A DNA test can confirm paternity, but Emily's emotional needs come first. She sees both of you as fathers. We must protect that bond. Matthew met Andrew's gaze, a silent truce forming. I am sorry I fired you, he said, his voice raw. I did not know about Emily, about any of this. Let us work together for her. Andrew's jaw clenched, but he nodded, his hand on Emily's shoulder. For her, he said, his voice steady. They left the office, Emily holding both their hands, her small figure a quiet demand for unity. Matthew drove them to Andrew's apartment, a modest place with worn furniture and Emily's drawings on the walls. He saw her life, her toys, her bed, and felt a pull, a need to be part of it. As Andrew put Emily to bed, Matthew stood in the living room, Jennifer's letter in his pocket, its words a call to face a past he had never known. The apartment was small but warm, its walls adorned with crayon drawings and faded photos, a testament to a life carved from love and struggle. Matthew Reed stood in Andrew Carter's living room, the crumpled letter from Jennifer in his pocket, its words, Emily is yours, a quiet storm in his mind. 3 days had passed since Emily, a 6-year-old with green eyes and tangled blonde hair, had marched into his office lobby, declaring him her father. The claim had upended his world, forcing him to confront a summer 9 years ago, a fleeting romance with Jennifer that had ended without promises. Andrew, the driver Matthew had fired, had raised Emily as his own, unaware of her true paternity until that letter surfaced. Now Matthew was here in Andrew's home, seeking answers while Emily slept in the next room, her small presence a bridge between two men bound by her truth. Andrew sat across from him, his hands clasped, his face etched with exhaustion. The tension from their confrontation in the lobby lingered, but Emily's needs had forged a fragile truce. Matthew's assistant, Sarah, had arranged for a DNA test, its results pending, and the family counselor, Linda, had urged them to prioritize Emily's stability. Matthew's empire, Reed Enterprises, felt distant, its demands muted by the weight of Jennifer's letter and the possibility that Emily was his daughter. I need to know more about Jennifer, Matthew said, his voice low, careful not to wake Emily. What she told you, what she left behind. That letter, it is all I have. Andrew's jaw tightened, his eyes flickering with pain. Jennifer was everything, he said, his voice rough. We met a year after you knew her. She was working as a waitress, raising Emily alone. She never mentioned you, not once. When Emily was born, Jennifer said the father was gone, out of the picture. I loved her, so I stayed, became Emily's dad. When Jennifer got sick, cancer 2 years ago, she wrote that letter, sealed it, told me to give it to Emily if she ever needed more than I could provide. Matthew's chest ached, Andrew's devotion a mirror to his own ignorance. I did not know. She was pregnant, he said, his tone raw. Jennifer and I were together for a few weeks, a summer fling. I was young, focused on building my company. She never reached out. Andrew leaned forward, his voice sharp but quiet. And you never looked back, he said. Jennifer deserved better. Emily deserves better. Matthew nodded, the truth stinging. I want to make it right, he said. If Emily is mine, I will be there for her. But I need to understand Jennifer's life, what she wanted. Andrew rose, crossing to a small bookshelf and pulled out a wooden box, its surface worn, but polished. This was hers, he said, setting it on the table. Letters, photos, things she kept for Emily. I never looked through it, felt like betraying her. But you should see it. Matthew opened the box, his hands steady despite the weight of the moment. Inside were folded letters, a locket, and a stack of photos. One showed Jennifer, younger, her smile bright, holding a newborn Emily. Another was of Jennifer and Andrew, laughing at a park, Emily toddling between them. A third caught Matthew's breath, a faded Polaroid of him and Jennifer, their arms around each other, the summer sun framing their faces. His younger self looked carefree, a version he barely recognized before Reed Enterprises consumed him. There is more, Andrew said, handing him a small notebook, its pages filled with Jennifer's handwriting. She wrote letters to Emily for when she is older. I read one after she died. Mentioned you. Matthew opened the notebook, his eyes scanning a letter dated a year before Jennifer's death. Emily, my heart, you are brave and kind. Andrew is your daddy, but Matthew Reed is your father. He does not know you yet, but I believe he will love you if he gets the chance. Forgive him and forgive me for keeping you apart. The words were a knife cutting through Matthew's defenses, Jennifer's faith in him a burden and a gift. Why did she keep it a secret? Matthew asked, his voice barely audible. Andrew shrugged, his gaze distant. She said once that you were meant for bigger things. He said. She did not want to hold you back. After she got sick, she wrote that letter, maybe hoping you would step up if I could not. Matthew's throat tightened, guilt and resolve intertwining. He thought of Emily, her courage in finding him, her small hand clutching that envelope. I want to step up, he said, but I will not take her from you, Andrew. She loves you. We need to do this together. Andrew's eyes softened, his voice low. For Emily, he said. But you hurt her and we are done. Matthew nodded, the agreement a vow. He called Sarah, his voice urgent. Get me a lawyer, he said. Someone who can handle custody arrangements fast and reinstate Andrew's job effective immediately. Sarah's pause was brief. On it, she said. Anything else? Find out everything you can about Jennifer, Matthew said. Her family, her life after we parted. I need to know who she was. As Sarah worked, Matthew stayed at the apartment watching Emily wake, her small frame bounding into the living room. Mr. Reed, she said, her smile bright. Are you staying? For a bit, Matthew said, his voice warm, kneeling to her level. Want to show me your drawings? Emily nodded, pulling him to a table covered in paper and crayons. She handed him a picture, a house, a sun, 3 stick figures labeled me, Daddy, Mr. Reed. Matthew's heart clenched, her innocence a call to be the man Jennifer had believed he could be. Andrew watched, his expression softening, a silent acknowledgement of their shared purpose. That evening, Matthew drove back to his penthouse, the wooden box on the passenger seat, Jennifer's notebook in his hands. He read another letter, her words to Emily a guide. Family is not just blood, but love that stays. He thought of Andrew's devotion, Emily's trust, and felt a shift, a need to rebuild not just for her, but for the man he had failed to be. The DNA test loomed, but whatever it revealed, Matthew would fight for Emily, for the family Jennifer had envisioned. The city was a restless hum, its lights a restless dance against the evening sky. Matthew Reed stood in his penthouse, the sleek expanse of glass and steel softened by a small drawing on the coffee table, a house, a sun, 3 stick figures labeled me, Daddy, Mr. Reed. Emily's crayon strokes, left during her visit yesterday, were a quiet anchor pulling him from the chaos of Reed Enterprises to the fragile truth of her claim. A week had passed since the 6-year-old had walked into his lobby, her green eyes declaring him her father, a letter from Jennifer in her small hands. The letter had unraveled his past, pointing to a summer 9 years ago, a brief romance that had left no trace until now. Andrew Carter, the driver Matthew had fired, had raised Emily as his own, and the tension between them simmered, bound by their love for the girl who called them both family. Matthew's fingers traced the drawing, his mind on Jennifer's notebook, its pages filled with letters to Emily, one naming him as her father. The DNA test results were due tomorrow, a scientific answer to a question that had already reshaped his heart. Andrew's devotion, Emily's trust, had forced Matthew to see the man he had been, driven, distant, quick to cut ties like he had with Andrew. The wooden box from Andrew's apartment, filled with Jennifer's keepsakes, sat on his desk, its contents a map to a woman he had barely known, but whose love for Emily demanded he act. His phone buzzed, Sarah's voice cutting through his thoughts. "The lawyer is ready," she said. "Jessica Bennett, best in family law. She is filing for a custody arrangement, but social services is involved since Emily's mother is deceased and Andrew's not her biological father. They want a hearing in 4 days." Matthew's grip tightened, his voice firm. "Do whatever it takes," he said. "I want Emily safe, with both of us, Andrew and me. And get me everything you can on Jennifer's life. There has to be more." "Working on it," Sarah said. "I found her sister Rachel in a town upstate. She might know something. I will set up a call." Matthew nodded, his resolve hardening. He drove to Andrew's apartment, the city's pulse A. Distant backdrop, his thoughts on Emily's drawing, her small voice calling him Mr. Reed. The apartment building was worn but sturdy, its halls smelling of laundry and spices. Andrew opened the door, his face guarded but less hostile, Emily peeking from behind him, her blonde hair in a messy braid. "Mr. Reed," she said, her smile bright, rushing to hug his legs. "Did you bring my picture?" Matthew knelt, his voice warm. "It is at my place," he said, pulling a small sketchbook from his coat. "I brought this instead. Thought we could draw together." Emily's eyes lit up, grabbing the book and led him to the living room table already cluttered with crayons. Andrew watched, his arms crossed, but his posture softened as Emily chattered, drawing a dog beside a tree. Matthew joined her, his lines clumsy but earnest, her laughter a spark in the room's quiet tension. "We need to talk," Matthew said to Andrew, his voice low, glancing at Emily. "About her future." Andrew nodded, leading him to the kitchen, the door ajar so Emily's giggles filtered through. "What do you want?" Andrew asked, his voice steady but sharp. "You think you can just walk in, claim her, and take over?" Matthew shook his head, his tone raw. "I do not want to take her," he said. "I want to be part of her life with you. Jennifer chose you to raise her, and Emily loves you. But if I am her father, I have a responsibility. We need to figure out how to do this together." Andrew's eyes narrowed, but his voice softened. "She is all I have," he said. "Jennifer was my world, and when she died, Emily kept me going. I cannot lose her." "You will not," Matthew said, his voice firm. "I rehired you, Andrew. Your job is back with it. Raise. But this is not about work. It is about Emily, about giving her the family Jennifer wanted." Andrew studied him, his guard easing, and nodded. "We will try," he said. "For her." They returned to the living room, Emily holding up her drawing, a family of stick figures, now with a dog. Matthew's chest ached, her vision of them a call to build something real. He spent the evening there, reading to Emily, her small body curled against him, Andrew watching with cautious trust. As she fell asleep, Matthew carried her to bed, her braids soft against his shoulder, and felt a shift, a need to be more than the man who had fired Andrew. Without a second thought. The next morning, Sarah arranged a call with Rachel, Jennifer's sister, her voice warm but weary through the phone. "Jennifer loved Emily fiercely," Rachel said. "She told me about you, Matthew, years ago. Said you were ambitious, not ready for a family. When she found out she was pregnant, she chose not to tell you, wanted Emily to have a stable life. Andrew was there and she trusted him." Matthew's throat tightened, Jennifer's choice a weight he could not shake. "Did she leave anything else?" he asked. "Something for Emily?" "A journal," Rachel said. "I have it. It is mostly for Emily, about her dreams for her. I can't send it." "Please," Matthew said, his voice urgent. "And Rachel, thank you." The journal arrived the next day, its pages filled with Jennifer's hopes. "Emily, you are my light. Andrew will always be your daddy, but Matthew has a heart he has not found yet. Hope he finds it for you." Matthew read it, his eyes stinging, and shared it with Andrew there. Shared grief, a quiet bond. They met with Jessica, the lawyer, to prepare for the hearing, agreeing to seek joint custody, a structure that honored Emily's love for both. Matthew brought Emily to the penthouse, her small figure bright against the sterile decor, and they drew together, her laughter filling the space. Andrew joined them, his presence a step toward unity. As the hearing loomed, Matthew felt Jennifer's presence, her journal a guide, Emily's trust, a purpose. He would fight not just for his daughter but for the family she had drawn, a chance to be the man Jennifer had believed he could be. The courtroom was a quiet crucible, its oak paneling and soft light steeped in the gravity of choices made and futures shaped. Matthew Reed sat at the petitioner's table, his charcoal suit sharp but his posture taut, a silent signal of the stakes he carried. Across the aisle, Ms. Diane Walsh, the social services representative, reviewed her file, her expression professional but unyielding. In the gallery, Emily sat between Andrew Carter and Sarah, Matthew's assistant, her pink dress bright against the somber benches, her green eyes wide with trust. She clutched a small sketchbook, her fingers tracing the edges, a gift from Matthew now filled with her drawings. Andrew's hand rested on her shoulder, his face a mix of resolve and fear, while Sarah offered a reassuring smile. Matthew met Emily's gaze, his not a vow, we are in this together. 9 months had passed since Emily walked into the lobby of Reed Enterprises, her small voice declaring Matthew her father, a letter from Jennifer shattering his ordered world. The moment had led to Andrew's apartment, to a wooden box of memories, and to Jennifer's journal, its pages revealing a summer romance 9 years ago and a daughter Matthew never knew. The DNA test had confirmed Emily was his, but Andrew, who had raised her with unwavering love, was her father in every way that mattered. Matthew had scaled back his empire, Reed Enterprises, to build a life with Emily, reading bedtime stories, drawing with her, learning her world. Andrew, reinstated as his driver and now a partner in this unconventional family, had become a brother of sorts, their bond forged by Emily's love. This hearing would decide her future, and the weight of it pressed against Matthew, a test of the man he had become. The judge, a woman with a calm demeanor and silver hair, took her seat. We are here to determine the custody arrangement for Emily Carter, she said, her voice clear. Mr. Reed and Mr. Carter seek joint guardianship. Ms. Walsh represents the state. Let us begin. Ms. Walsh stood, her tone measured but firm. Your Honor, while Mr. Reed and Mr. Carter have resources and intent, their arrangement is unconventional, she said. Emily's stability is our priority. Mr. Reed, a single CEO, has no parenting experience, and Mr. Carter, though devoted, is not her biological father. Foster care, with its oversight, may better serve her needs. Jessica, Matthew's lawyer, rose, her voice steady and confident. Your Honor, Matthew Reed and Andrew Carter have provided a loving, stable home for 9 months, she said. The DNA test confirms Mr. Reed is Emily's biological father, and Mr. Carter has been her primary caregiver since birth. They have enrolled her in school, secured therapy, and built a family that honors her mother's wishes, as detailed in Jennifer's journal. Emily thrives with them and she wishes to stay. Foster care would disrupt that bond. The judge's eyes shifted to the journal, its worn pages open before her, her expression unreadable. I have reviewed the evidence, she said. Mr. Reed, Mr. Carter, please address the court. Why should you be granted joint custody? Matthew stood, his heart pounding but his voice firm. He looked at Emily, her sketchbook a beacon, then at Andrew, his quiet strength a foundation. I built my life on control, he said. My company was my world, and when I fired Andrew, I saw people as pieces to move. Emily changed that. Her courage, her drawings, her trust showed me what family means. She is my daughter, but Andrew is her father too. We are not perfect, but we are committed to her together. Andrew rose, his voice steady despite the weight. Emily is my heart, he said. I raised her, loved her mother, Jennifer. When I learned Matthew was her father, I was angry, but Emily needs us both. We have worked hard to make this family real for her. The courtroom fell silent, their words resonating like a shared promise. Emily's eyes glistened, her small hands clutching the sketchbook. Ms. Walsh's notes lay untouched, her certainty faltering. The judge turned to Emily. Emily, she said, her tone gentle. Would you like to speak? Emily nodded, sliding off the bench, her dress catching the light as she walked to the stand, sketchbook in hand. I love Daddy Andrew and Mr. Reed, she said, her voice clear. They read to me, draw with me, make me feel safe. Mommy wanted us to be a family. I want to stay with them. She opened her sketchbook, holding up a drawing, a house, a sun, 3 stick figures with a dog. This is us, she said, her smile bright. We are happy. The judge's expression softened, but she remained composed, dismissing Emily to her seat. The hearing continued with testimony from Linda, the counselor, who praised Emily's Emotional growth, and Rachel, Jennifer's sister, who shared Jennifer's hopes for Emily's future. Ms. Walsh's final argument leaned on procedure, but her conviction waned. The judge called a recess, promising a ruling by noon. Matthew, Andrew, and Emily waited in a quiet hallway, sharing a bench. Emily climbed onto Matthew's lap, her sketchbook open. "Are we staying together?" she asked, her voice small. Matthew held her close, Andrew's hand on her back, their unity a quiet strength. "We are," Matthew said, his voice steady. "No matter what, we are your family." Andrew nodded, his eyes meeting Matthew's, a silent vow. Matthew thought of Jennifer, her journal a guiding light, its words, "Family is love that stays," a call they had answered. The court reconvened, and the judge's voice cut through the tension. "This case is about Emily's home," she said. "Mr. Reed, Mr. Carter, you have shown remarkable dedication, building a family that honors her mother's vision. Emily, your voice is powerful. Based on the DNA test, the journal, and your bond, I grant joint guardianship to Mr. Reed and Mr. Carter, with a review in 1 year. Make this her home, and it may become permanent." Matthew exhaled, relief flooding through him. Emily leapt into their arms, her laughter a bright chord, Andrew's tears silent but joyful. They left the courtroom, the city's hum a distant backdrop, and drove to a community center where they had planned a small celebration, a drawing party for Emily and her friends, a nod to her love of art. That afternoon they gathered in the center's garden, the air warm with summer's promise. Sarah and Rachel joined them, bringing smiles as Emily handed out sketchbooks, her joy infectious. Matthew and Andrew worked side by side, serving lemonade, their laughter mingling with the children's. Jennifer's journal rested on a table, its pages a testament to her love, Emily's drawing a mirror to their new reality. Over the next year, Emily flourished. Her art won school awards, her laughter filled their lives. Matthew launched a foundation in Jennifer's name, funding art programs for kids in need, ensuring her legacy lived on. Andrew moved closer, their shared home a blend of Emily's drawings and Matthew's books, a space where love stayed. The 1-year review came, and the judge granted permanent custody, sealing their family. One spring evening they sat in the garden, the city's skyline a distant glow. Emily handed Matthew a new drawing, a family tree, its branches curling around their names, Jennifer's sketched at the root. "For Mommy," she said, her smile radiant. Matthew pulled her close, Andrew beside them, his eyes soft. "For us," he said, his voice warm. They sat together, the stars above a quiet witness, Emily's drawing a promise kept, a family forged by a letter, and Jennifer's love that would endure.